All right, Unit 6, we're going to talk about transformations in this unit, and we're going to start with translations, go to reflections, rotations, and we're going to end with symmetry. Okay, we're not going to cover dilations just because of the time constraints that we have, but today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about translations. Okay, so we have to answer a few questions about translations or just transformations in general. So the first being, what exactly is a transformation? Okay, so here we have all of these words, and each one of these you can drag and drop. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're first going to define, can't do that, I have to stay here. But we're first going to define what a transformation is. Okay, so transformations, okay, I'm sure most people have seen the movie called Transformers, right? But Transformers, they're going from, whether it be a car or a robot or something, and they're transforming themselves into something different. Okay, so with shapes and with geometry, transformations, we're taking a shape and we're not changing the shape itself, but we're just moving it to a different place. Okay, so a transformation takes an original figure. Okay, so we're taking an original shape, and we call this the pre-image, and it takes the pre-image and makes it into a new figure, which we then call the image. So the pre-image is our original shape. It's what we have before we transform using translations, rotations, reflections, or some kind of dilation. And then it takes that and it puts it on into a new figure, just moves it to a different place. Okay. So that's what a transformation is. Now, the other thing that's important is to determine what a translation is. Okay, so translation, if you don't remember anything about what translation is, the only thing I want you to remember is right here where we have this SL. Okay, the SL is extremely important because it helps us to identify what kind of transformation that we're using. Okay, SL, that is the first two words or the first two letters of the word slide. SL is the first two letters of the word slide. So when we do a translation, we are sliding SL, we're sliding the pre-image, our original shape, to a different place. Okay, that's all that we're doing. We're just sliding the original shape to a different place. And the formal definition for this is we're taking every single point on the pre-image and we're moving it the exact same distance and direction. Okay, so that's what translations are. We're just sliding a shape to a different place. Now, there's different ways that you will see things worded when you're asked a question. Some questions may say translate this shape, the pre-image, translate the pre-image 5 units right and 1 unit up. Okay, so they may just list it out like this in a full sentence. Now, another way that you might see it is something like this. Let me zoom in real quick. Whoa. Okay, so right here in question number 1, okay, they don't say translate 5 units or 6 units or whatever. Okay, they give us a formula. And the formula is just addition or subtraction. Okay, so this is another way that you would see a translation. So they're saying take your original points, okay, take your pre-image points, and they're going to become, that's what this little arrow is, it's saying that the pre-image is going to go to this new location where we add 5 to the X value and we add 7 to the Y value. So we'll come back and take a look at that after we take a look at some simple examples. Okay, so the first thing that we take a look at here is how do we move something 5 units to the right and 1 unit up on a graph? Well, the graph's pretty easy, right? You can simply just count 5 units right and then 1 unit up. So what this would look like is if I chose to do point T, okay? Remember what our definition is. Our definition of translating is moving all of the points of the pre-image the same distance and the same direction. So when I come back here to T, I'm going to move T the same distance and the same direction as if I were to move G and B. So they're telling us this entire shape has to go 5 units right. That's the first thing that we have to do. We have to go 5 units to the right and then 1 unit up. So you can just count. We're on the grid here. So if I go 5 to the right, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I went 5 to the right, and then I have to go 1 unit up. So I just hop up 1 space. So this right here is going to be T, but it's T prime. Okay, so the prime is just the letter with an apostrophe above it. Okay, we'll come back and write this note down here in just a second. Now I'm going to do the same thing for each one of the other points. So for G, I go 5 to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I go 1 unit up. So here's my G, and since it's the new G, I have to put the apostrophe that goes with it. And then I do the last one, which is B down here. So I go 5 to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I go up 1 space. So this is my new B. Now, once you've got all the points, the new points written out, okay, you can go through. And what you're going to do is you're going to connect the new points together to make your new shape. It's not really a new shape, it's just the same shape in a different location. And typically, when you make your new shape, you want to shade it in. So if you see a shape that's shaded in, okay, that is the image, right? So the pre-image does not have anything shaded in, and it doesn't have the apostrophes, but the image, it has the apostrophes and the shape is shaded in. Okay, so this is what it looks like whenever you use pen or pencil and paper. Now, in your notebook, you won't be able to do this on the quizzes, what I'm about to show you, but in the notebook for this specific problem, okay, they have a shade that's over here. We're just going to drag it to the graph. See how this one's shaded in as well? Okay, so it's going to be hard for you to count the spaces on this. So what I would do is I would just take a mental note of how many spaces each point is whenever you go 5 to the right and then 1 unit up. So t is right here at -1, so it's going to be at a +4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1 up. So that's roughly where, whoops. This is just a rough estimate of where it's going to be. Okay, it's not perfect, but this is the best that we can do. Okay, so in your notebook, you're going to want to write down a couple of things. And the first is over here. I forgot to put in a text box for you, but over here, we're going to type in a few things. The first being that we need to define what the letters represent and what the shaded pictures represent on our graphs. Okay, so the pre-image is not shaded and does not have any apostrophes attached to the letters. Okay, the image, though, on the other hand, is shaded and has the apostrophes attached to the letter. Okay, so this is just our notation that we have to use every single time we do a transformation. And this doesn't just apply for translations. This also applies for the other ones as well. Okay, so those are the two notations that we will be using for every single transformation. Okay, that's the first thing that you need to put into your notebook. Okay, now the second thing that we talked about was how we move our shapes. Okay, so there's a few different things that you can do, okay? And these are just strategies for solving translations. Okay, the first one being that you can hop. Okay, you can call it hops, you can call it steps, whatever you feel helps you the best. You can either hop or take steps from the original picture, from the pre-image. So you can hop or take steps from the pre-image and then this is going to help you to make the new shape, which is called the image. Okay, so that's really the best strategy for translations. The other strategy, which we haven't talked about yet, is going to be the one where you just add. Okay, so you're going to add to the coordinates. And what we'll do is, we're not going to use this example, but we're going to have to go back to this slide down here. And we're going to show how we can add the specific number of translated units to each coordinate to come up with our new shape. Okay, but for this specific example, okay, it's easiest if they don't give you the coordinates. It's easiest to just hop the correct amount of spaces that it tells you to do to get to the next point. Okay, so that's our notation. Okay, you're always going to be asked what the new coordinates are going to be. So for the new G, okay, the G prime is going to be 5 units from -3, and 1 unit from -1. So our G prime, if we add 5 to -3, that's going to give us a +2. And if we add 1 with -1, that gives us a 0. And I don't think they have that over here. Yeah, so we have to type that in. Okay, for your T prime, we add 5 to -1, and then we add 1 to -1. So when we do 5 for -1 plus a +5, that gives us a 4. And then -1 plus a +1 gives us a 0. And lastly, for B prime, we add 5 to -3, which gives us a +2. And then we take -5 and we add 1, and that gives us -4. All right, so now we're down here on slide 6. Okay, we're going to take a look at the mathematical ways to complete these translations. Okay, so I've given you some space over here to type all your work into. Okay, there's a box for each. There's a box for each question. Okay, so what we're going to do here is just talk about what all these things mean in this problem. Now, typically with questions like this, okay, they're going to list out every single vertice for each one of the points, and then they're also going to tell you what the translation is. With the other ones, okay, you're not going to see exactly what you're doing, like addition and subtraction wise. Okay, that's what's special about translations. With translations, okay, they tell you exactly what to do in terms of how far each point's going to go and what direction it's going to go in. So the XY coordinate, this right here is your original point. Okay, so this is your original point. So if I take point Q, for instance, if I'm doing point Q, the -6 and the -1 are going to go right here for the x and for the y. Now what I'm doing is I'm taking the original points. Okay, so I'm taking the original x value and the original y value, and I am transforming it. This arrow right here means that you're transforming it somehow, and in this case, we're translating it. Okay, so we're going to transform the original point this many units for the x, and then this many units for the right. So all you're doing is you're taking, for all these points, for point Q, point R, point S, and point T, you're taking the x value and you're adding 5 to it. So for Q to go to Q prime, we're taking -6 and we're adding +5. Okay, so -6 plus 5 gives me -1, and that's for the Q prime. Now for the Y value, I'm doing something different. For the Y value, I'm adding 7. So I take -1 because that's the Y value for the original Q. And then I'm adding 7. So -1 plus 7 gives me a +6. Okay. Now these numbers here, these are telling you which direction the shape's going in, right? So if I ask you what the translation is, and I only give you the numbers, you would say that this one went to the right 5 and up 7. Okay, so to the right 5 and then up 7. And the way that you can write that out is there's just a general rule of thumb. Okay, if we add, so if you add numbers to, or if you add a number to the original coordinate, then you're going to the right. Okay, so it could be 5 units, it could be 10 units. I just put this little blank here saying that if you add however many units to the original, to the pre-image coordinates, then we go to the right. So the shape will go to the right. Okay. The second rule is if you subtract, then you go to the left. And this is for the x values. So if you subtract, the shape goes left. And then if you do it for the y values, so this was for the x values. If you do it for the y values, adding goes up, subtracting goes down. So y values, adding goes up, subtracting goes down. Most of it's common sense, but just as a rule of thumb, okay, make sure that you have these in your notes. So with the y values, adding goes up, subtracting goes down. Now, if we wanted to plot each one of these points for number 1, Q is at -6, -1. So here's the y-axis, here's the x-axis, and then this point right here is 0, 0. So -6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's going to be right here. I'm going to change the color on this to something a little bit brighter. So here's Q. S is +1, -5. So here's +1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is S. T is -2, -7, -1, -2. This was -5, so -6, -7. And the last one was R, which is -3, -1. So -1, -2, -3, -1. Something's not right here. -3, +1. That's what it was. Six. There's Q. Then R was -3, -1, -2, -3, +1. So we're going to check these. Okay. So now we just connect the lines together to make our original shape. Remember, with the original shape, we don't shade it in. Okay, so that's what the original shape looks like. Yes. Okay, now with our new points, we're going to do this rule up here, which was add 5 to the x and then add 7 to the y. So each point that's listed right here is going to have five added to the x and then 7 added to the y. So when I take my r coordinate, we're going to do this one the way that we did it on the first one. Okay, we're going to add 5, so it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We did 5 hops to the right. Then we have to go up 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's going to be up here at the top. So here's our R prime. Now each one of these is going to go the same distance in the x and then the same distance in the y. So with Q, okay, we already did Q. We said that Q, if we add 5 to -6, it gives us a -1. So that's going to be right here. And then we have to add 7 to -1 for the y. That's going to be +6. Here is Q prime. Now for T, or we'll do S first. So S, we have 1, and we're going to add 5 to it. And then for the y, we're going to add 7. So 1 plus 5 gives us a 6. And then negative 5 plus 7 gives us a positive 2. So I'm going to go positive 6 in the x, and then positive 2 in the y. So here's s prime. And then the last one we have t, which is negative 2, negative 7. If I add 5 to the x and add 7 to the y, that's going to give me the t prime. Negative 2 plus 5 gives me a positive 3. Negative 7 plus 7 gives me a 0. So 1, 2, 3, and then 0. And then we just connect everything together. And shade it in because it is the new image. That's what our translated shape would look like. Okay, so translations might be the easiest just because when we do them, you're either adding or subtracting, and that's all that you're doing. You're not having to switch values. You're not having to take the x and put it in a different place. You're just adding to the x value or subtracting to the x value for each point, and you're also doing it the same for the y. Okay, so translations, two different ways to do it. The way that we showed down here was taking each coordinate point, and we're just adding or subtracting the amount that it tells us to get to the new one. And then for the first set of questions that we did, okay, so that was this slide up here. We wrote this down and we said that you can hop or take steps from the pre-image, which is not shaded. So you can go from one of the points on the pre-image and you can hop the correct distance in the x and the correct distance in the y to get to the image. Okay, so two different strategies for solving these questions, hopping or adding and subtracting from the original numbers. Okay, we're going to take a look at reflections next.